Happy Monday, family. Welcome back to another episode of the 365 Dad podcast. This is episode number 6. Yes, if you are on YouTube, you are seeing the awkward 6 that I'm putting up. My name is Odini. I am your host. I'm so grateful to be here to share fatherhood perspectives with you all, even the moms. Thankful for the moms that tap in. I am your host, dedicated father of two, entrepreneur, and you guessed it, overall cool guy. Today, we are talking about the priority of putting yourself first in fatherhood. I want to say, this is a topic that should be discussed more. And when I see it discussed online, I see more dads feeling bad for themselves as opposed to embracing it. So I am very excited to go into this topic. I'm going to talk about ways that we can prioritize that alone time, prioritize that social time, and how not doing so is actually selfish in a way, and how prioritizing yourself as a dad and as an individual will actually serve your children better. So, before we jump into that, obviously we have to go into our brief intro. Really, when it comes to my intro today, I just want to share with you all that I am about to embark on a 72-hour fast. I'm excited about this. I've done it before. It wasn't fully 72 hours though. It was like 55 hours or something like that. So a 3-day fast. And I am doing this. I have done it before, like I said, but I'm doing this because it really helps get the toxins out of your body, and it also helps clear your mind as well. I don't, recommend you doing this every single week. This is just something that I do from time to time, and it has been very beneficial for me. I already tapped into my higher self, and I've already intuited that this is something that will be of benefit to me. So I'm happy about this. The problem is, so I have my kids this weekend, and whenever I have my kids, I eat very, I'll be honest, bad, or what I perceive as bad, because you know how it is. Like they want the pizza, they want the this, they want the that. And while I limit, how much processed foods they eat, as children, you kind of just got this soft side of you where you're like, all right, I'm not about to just let you house 30 fried chicken wings, you know what I mean? But you want a slice of pizza, what's the big deal? But when I see that, I'm just like, oh, give me all the junk food, and it's not good for me. So one thing that I do struggle with is, and I think a lot of co-parents would agree to this, is keeping your same routine and disciplines when you're with your kids, right? So when I'm with my children, I tend to like fall asleep later at night. I tend to really not be as disciplined with my diet and my lifestyle. So I think starting this fast, when I have them, is going to be great for me discipline wise and mentally. Just to kind of prove to myself that when you have these kids around, you can still be healthy, bro. You know what I mean? Like just to prove to myself. So I'm excited about it. I'm not. It may sound like I'm nervous or I'm hesitant, but I'm not, because I'm well aware of the benefits that this fast um, will will have on my mind and my body, mentally and physically, and in my spirit. So I'm excited for it. It started already. Technically, I ate my last meal at like 12:30, so it has commenced. And all I'm doing is drinking water, uh, herbal tea with no caffeine, and that'll be my diet for the next few days. All right, so let's jump right in. I know I didn't give y'all two songs next week. Let's just let's jump right into the topic, because reality is, after this I am rushing to go do something to prioritize myself before I pick my kids up. So we'll talk about that. That I just think this is a perfect scenario for for this episode because this is what we're talking about. So today's topic came from the 365 Dad Journal. Link in show notes if you haven't uh, gotten a 365 Dad Journal, or if you just want to learn more about the 365 Dad Journal. So before this episode, I was like, I'm just gonna flip randomly through pages of the 365 Dad Journal, and whatever prompt that came up is what I'm gonna talk about today. I like that. It's real organic. Um, I don't like to effort too much. I used to, and sometimes I'm still guilty of this, but I really just want to let like my energy source just guide me. So anytime we effort too much, it usually doesn't end up good. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I'm not about to sit here and sketch out an entire um, dialogue, an entire point one, point two, point three. I'm just going to flip to a page and talk about it naturally. So I did that, and the page that came up were some mindfulness prompts, and these mindfulness prompts were in regards to prioritizing a social life as a dad, as a parent. So one prompt says, what challenges do you face as a dad while prioritizing a social life? Another prompt says, having a meaningful social life can reduce stress. How do you make the time to enjoy experiences outside your role as a dad? Okay. So when I wrote these prompts, obviously I wrote them with, my own fatherhood experiences in mind because I knew so many people would relate. So this these set of prompts came from me always feeling bad about prioritizing myself, especially when I have to be a dad. So, as a co parent, and I'm sure many of my listeners who may be co parents, I'm sure you can relate to this next sentence. We always feel like our time with our kids is borrowed, right? We always feel like, oh, I know I'm not going to have them every day. So I got to make the most use of it, which is definitely true. But you want to look at the time with your kids as quality as opposed to quantity. And what makes the time with your children as quality time is how you show up during that time, right? Are you on your phone the entire time? Are you just sitting them in front of the TV the entire time? Or are you doing things together? Maybe you are watching a show together and engaging during that show. You're taking walks outside, right? You're going into nature. You are just doing things together. You're cooking. You're just doing things together that makes the time of quality and just not focused on the quantity. And I say all that to say it is in my experience and how I perceive it as something that really determines the quality of the time spent with our children is how are we showing up on our charge, right? So are we 100% charged or are we 20% charged, right? Have we given ourselves the time to truly fill our cups? Because if our cup is filled, that will just 1000% benefit and determine how well we are showing up in our roles as dad and as moms for the moms listening, right? I never want to make the moms feel like they can't tap in. All right. So, um, this topic is a good one because I remember, and I'm going to just be real. So, I've been co parenting since my kid was like 1 year old, right? And I'm actually co parenting with both of my children. So, my daughter, obviously, you all know by now, 2 years old, co parenting with her mom. My son is 12, co parenting with his mom. First of all, real quick, let me give a shout out to my son and my daughter on their next uh, advancements in education. My son just started seventh grade yesterday. I was very, very happy. I picked him up yesterday. We played, we hooped, we spoke about, his goals for this year. So seventh grade is wild. I remember being in seventh grade, which is crazy. My daughter just started her new class. She is very advanced for her age, so they say. So she's in class right now with kids who are very much older than her. I want to clap it up for her because she is potty training and she is every day she's making strides. So happy for her. All right. When I was younger in my fatherhood stage, you can ask my friends this for sure. They'll vouch. I never did anything when I had my child, right? Like when I had my son, just don't even like text me about the get together. Don't holler, don't even reach out to me about, the basketball game that's going on. Just don't reach out to me because I just felt like it was so wrong for me to engage in outside activities during the time that I have my kid. So the good thing about this conversation and anything we talk about in life is everything is a half truth, right? So there is truth to that, that yes, when you have your children, obviously it's beneficial if you're prioritizing that time. That's a truth. We can't deny that. But it's also true that you are not just dad, you are an individual being in this body that has different wants and needs. So if you want and need to socialize, potentially you doing that for a few hours can drastically improve the quality of time spent with your child. So I obviously never looked at that part of the truth. I just looked at the first part. So with that being said, I want to say it took me like 6 years. I promise you. It took me like 6 years before I asked my mom to watch my kid for me for like a night. And I got some friends who they got kids and and I see them out and about and I'm like, dang, how they doing this? And they just tell me, they're like, yeah, my mom watching the kids. You know what I'm saying? Oh, my dad watching the kids. We're watching the kids. This person watching the kids. And I was like, dang, like I feel like I can't do that. And I'll never forget, I was working at this job. Shout out to my Ross University people who tap into the podcast. I was working at this job and a coworker of mine had a Halloween party. And I was like, man, I really want to go to this Halloween party. But you know how it is when you're co-parenting, you got to check the calendar. You know what I mean? So it's going to be on a Friday night or a Saturday night. And I'm like, let me check the calendar. Boom. Obviously, it lands on a weekend that I had my son. So I'm like, can't go. I'm like telling my coworkers, nah, I got my son, I can't go. And I don't know what happened. I don't even think I like spoke to somebody about this. I think I just had this moment where I was like, yo, what am I really trying to prove here? Right? Like, I feel like I show up a ton as a dad. So I'm just like, why can't I ask my mom at the time, I'm like, why can't I just ask my mom, like, hey, do you mind watching Caleb for 3 hours max? Um, while I go to this Halloween party? And I'm like, what's so wrong with that? Especially since it wasn't normal for me, right? Like it wasn't like I do this all the time. So I asked her and I'm like, hey, I'm probably gonna leave here like around 9ish. I'm going to get his stuff ready for bed and blah, blah, blah. And, like I'll take care of as much as I can take care of here. But do you mind just like keeping an eye on him and blah, blah, blah. She's like, yeah, of course. That was not hard. And when I look back at it, like I'm not a bad dad for that, right? But we tend to just label ourselves and be very hard on ourselves for moments like this. So I go to the party, I have a good time. Obviously, during the party, I got like these feelings. I'm like, oh man, like I'm supposed to be with my kid right now. It was very constricting, you know what I mean? But I got over it and I had a great time and we had a good weekend. And I think what we do is let society dictate what is us being a good dad. We let society dictate what is us being a good parent. We let the fear of how others will view us dictate that, right? So once I realized that, I'm like, yo, you know what? My children will benefit from me showing up fully charged as possible. And I spoke about this in another episode because I was on a one-on-one call and the client was talking about this. He had realized this was a pain point in his fatherhood journey. I love that because obviously it was a pain point in my fatherhood journey. And let's be honest, sometimes it still is. Sometimes I'm like, dang, the fellas are doing this, or I got invited to do this thing that I know would really fill my cup, especially anything that is mentally stimulating, right? Anything that is like um, a gathering that is, topics are being discussed, emotions are being discussed, uh, meditative experiences. I'm always like, I need to do that. But oftentimes I don't because I'm with my kids, maybe next time. And for the people who, right, and I get how if you're not co-parenting, right, it's easy for you to say, well, like let's say you're like me and like you got your kids half the month or something like that. You can look at me and say, well, that's unfair because I'm with my kids daily. Once again, there's half truth to everything. And I acknowledge that. Uh, but with life, everything is about prioritizing, right? So while, yes, I may have these set days on my calendar that, I am not per se, quote unquote, scheduled to be with my kids, I still have to prioritize how I'm going to fill my cup. And I think if you're parenting in a truly single situation, or if you're parenting in a two-parent home, you just have to find those times to prioritize. And whether we believe it or not, that time is there. One thing, and this is a whole nother topic we'll discuss some other time, but one thing that the human does is we love to blame factors outside of us for the reasons why we can't do something, right? So um, we would love to blame my spouse always brings food, junk food in the house, so I could never eat healthy because she's doing this, he's doing that. When in reality, we create our own experiences. We manifest our own reality. So while it may be perceived as more difficult to do that, obviously, at the end of the day, you are manifesting your own reality. So if no one is putting a gun to your head and is saying, yo, eat this, eat these Doritos right now, you chose to do that. You did. So I bring that up to say, you know, you can actively choose when and how to prioritize alone time. It is just much easier for you not to. And that's the raw truth of it all. It's much easier for you not to choose that. It's hard. It's hard. And it's easy for you not to do that. So we just fall back on the excuses of time, the excuses of being tired, the excuses of work, and so forth. Right. So something that I tend to look to when it comes to this point is a lot of my friends have they're married, right, and they live in the same home as their wives, spouse, and their children. And there are a lot of moments during the week when we're on the phone 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. There are moments during the week when we're playing uh, NBA 2K, Madden, Call of Duty for an hour or two. So I think to myself, I'm like, okay, here's an example of men who are in a situation where they live with their spouse and children, but they are filling their cup. And I just think what you choose to fill your cup with is on you. So some people might say, I'm not playing Call of Duty. Great. Take that 30 minutes that I use to play Call of Duty or hour that I use to play Call of Duty and ask your wife if you can go on a walk. Take that time and say, hey, babe, I got a book that I really want to read. I'm going to lock in for about 20 to 30 minutes and read a chapter or two, and just reciprocate. When is your turn to be the one to um, give the time that is needed to the other parent? So I'm not trying to speak too much on a situation that I'm not in. But what I do know is whatever you want to do for yourself, you truly can do it, but it's a lot easier for us to blame external factors on why we're not doing it. I'll leave it at that, right? Because part of me feels weird telling someone who's married in a home how to create time for themselves when I'm not in that situation. So I won't give you exact ways on how to do it, but just know that you can. And the beauty of life is you wake up every day and get the opportunity to figure stuff out. I almost said the S word just now. Proud of myself for that. All right. So, what's a real? I'm going to give you a good real life example of this. I have about an hour drive to my kids. I'm going to pick my son up around 5. Then go pick my daughter up. She lives like 15 minutes away, thankfully, from him, and then come back home. What am I going to do after this podcast? Literally, after I record this podcast, I'm going to drive close to the destination of both of them. I'm going to find a park and I'm going to do calisthenics, right? I'm going to go to a park. I'm going to do dips. I'm going to do some squats. I'm going to do some pull ups. I'm going to do some cardiovascular exercises. I'm basically going to have a workout that is not in the gym, outside. Because why? Two things. I love outdoors. The sun gives me great energy. I just love being outside, and obviously being physically in shape and feeling like you had a great workout can only benefit you positively. So when I leave here after this podcast and go get this workout in, that is me prioritizing myself. Um, because now when I do that, I go straight to pick my son up. We go pick my daughter up. I know I have filled my cup. That is much better than me being with them and being frustrated that I didn't do this. Or I didn't get a chance to do that. I had an opportunity to do something for myself and I chose not to do it. So now I'm subconsciously pissed at them and I'm like taking out my frustration on them. Right? We've all been there before. We've all done it and we've all been victims of it as children. So rather than letting the time spent with them be filled with some form of resentment, I'd rather prioritize filling my cup first. You know what I mean? When I was working 9 to 5, right? Because I know this is the next thing. Well, Odini, you have the luxury of signing off work at 3:30 or whenever you want to. Great point. Great point. I was once there, right? And who knows, I may be there again. So I empathize with that. I say to that, once again, find the time. Prioritize. I'm gonna give you an example. When I was working the last job I worked, this would be a perfect day for me because I would get off work at 4:30, run to the car, go pick my kids up. On those days, I made sure, I promise you, I made sure that my lunch hour was spent meditating or reading or taking a 30 to 45-minute walk outside by myself, with a coworker, whatever, right? So that is me pouring into myself. What would be the opposite? The opposite would be me knowing I got to pick up my kids and knowing I'm at work and spending the 60 minutes of free time I have scrolling the internet, right? Like doom scrolling. That's a waste of time. That is me not prioritizing myself before I go pick up my kids. You see where I'm going with this? I had the opportunity to, uh, you know, make a choice, do things that fill my cup. Meditating fills my cup. Reading fills my cup. Walking outside fills my cup. Calling my homeboy when he's on lunch break and laughing my behind off fills my cup. So these are the things that I was doing to make sure when I had to run out of work to go get my kids by a certain time, I've already done something in the day that filled my cup. So just remember, it is, I don't like talking in absolutes because there's, like I said, everything, there's truth in everything. But um, I'm gonna just say this because this is how I feel. I'm human. I'm gonna just say this. I personally believe it is actually very selfish of you to not prioritize yourself and then try to show up and be your best self you can be when you're parenting. And that's the reality of it. Like right now, if I chose to log off of this podcast and go watch TV or just scroll or just lay down and don't do something that I know is filling my cup, and then I pick my kid up and then I realized that I didn't do the thing that I wanted to do when I had the chance to do it. So now I'm like pissed and I'm responding with less love than normal. I'm responding with less compassion than normal. That's me being selfish. And that's just the reality of it. That is me being selfish. Or I can prioritize myself when I'm given the opportunity to enjoy the experiences that fill me up and show up as dad of the year. Like whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's my choice. That's the thing. Like it's always your choice. No matter what you think, no matter who you want to blame, no matter what you want to blame, it is always going to be your choice. You know, like something that um I think about all the time is, once in a while I like hang out with my friends and I smoke a cigar. We go to a cigar lounge and we just like it's like the guy time. It's like, I really enjoy those moments, and it makes sense for me in my life. So, this is something that we do maybe once every few weeks, once every couple months. One day, someone said, "Yo, we should like do this more often." Now, obviously, like I know the dangers of smoking, so I'm not trying to smoke a cigar every single day. But I'm like, yeah, like I don't mind doing this a couple times a month. Obviously, for me, I'm going to obviously throw out a day that I know I don't have my kids. For them, they can't do that because they live with their kids daily. But they are clearly going to ask their spouse, hey, this really fills me up. Do you mind if on X day during the month I go hang out with the guys for a few hours? I inherently believe that everyone is good. So if this man is showing up and is doing the things that he needs to be doing at home, I inherently believe that the spouse is going to say, of course, you should do that. Why not? Right? And so that is just an example of two people on polar opposites of the, parenting scale when it comes to physical time with their kids, being able to somehow show up at the same location at the same time. So prioritize yourself. It will truly, truly, truly be of benefit to you when you're parenting. Less resentment, less snappiness, and less wishing that you would have done something differently. Prioritize yourself. It's the most selfless thing that you can do. All right? You are loved. You are worthy. You are like just a beacon of light. And one day you'll realize that I'm in the journey right now of realizing that. And one day I'll also realize it. You're trying your hardest and your child appreciates you. So take the time to appreciate yourself. I'm out. I'm sending light. It's 3:24. I just want to say I killed this. I wanted to leave by 3:30. I was a little nervous. I didn't know how the time was going to shake out, and it's 3:24, and I'm about to leave just in time to go fill my cup, do my workout, and I just know I'm going to be just full of light when I see my kids today. So there you have it. Prioritizing alone time, your social life, things that fill your cup is actually the most selfless thing you can do. Your children will thank you for it. And I see you all next week. Have a good one. Sending you light.